Delegate Ron George has been a member of House of Delegates since January 2007. He's a small business owner. He founded Ron George Jewelers on Main Street in Annapolis in 1991. He then expanded to a second location in 2007. Delegate George also ran the State House from 2002 to 2007. Ron is the founder of the Center for Family Development. He established that in 2002 in Crownsville, where he works as the volunteer director till 2008. Prior to that, he was a volunteer director at the Conquest Boys Club from 98 to 2002, and he was a co-founder of the St. Peter the Rock Tutorial School and was a volunteer board member of the National Homeschoolers Support Network from 1998 to 2009. Please welcome Delegate Ron George.
Good morning. First of all, I want to thank Mike Galeazzo, and this is awesome. Get together. Manufacturing is an important thing to me. Personally, I put it on my platform early on in this campaign back in May. My announcement on June 5th, I had it in there. People actually came to me and they said, "How do you expect to compete with China?" And it's like, oh my gosh, I need you to talk to some of these governors from other states and what's happening because manufacturing is so important. I own Ron George Jewelers. It isn't just the two locations that I have. It's also the fact that I have a strong online manufacturing business. Years ago, I paid my way through college designing and making jewelry wholesale for the industry. Out of Syracuse, New York, paid my way through college. I built this, The fact is that my sons and I see, with the online part again, a growing part of our business. What we're doing now isn't manufacturing for the industry. We do it contractual to individuals, very expensive jewelry pieces around the country. We want to grow that end. And manufacturing is something I speak on often. Serving on the Ways and Means Committee, I am the go-to person on small business. I received a Legislator of the Year award in 2008, mainly for leading the repeal on the tech service tax from that industry. And then this year getting a cap on the boat excise tax to help bring back that industry. As I'm sure you're aware, manufacturing is making a comeback in many parts of the United States. Labor costs are rising around the world, resulting in jobs coming back, and some of these other states are becoming more competitive. Our role as policymakers is to prepare our state and our citizens for the policies, education, and skills they would need to be competitive in the 21st century. I believe strongly that Maryland can be a leader in manufacturing, but we know there are huge obstacles we must overcome. According to the Bureau, and I'll just go very briefly, and I want to thank Dr. Hicks also for his study. I'm going to add just a couple things to it because this is what drives me in wanting to do something for manufacturing. According to the Bureau of Labor Statistics, the U.S. has added 520,000 manufacturing jobs since January 2010, just over a couple of years ago, 520,000. That figure is counted among the nation's 12 million total manufacturing jobs, which contributes, my friends, 12% to the GDP, the gross domestic product, 12%. However, let's talk about Maryland. Maryland has lost over 9,000 jobs during that same time. So it's been growing elsewhere. We've lost 9,000 since 2010. That's an 8% decline. The governor has been on the defensive a little bit due to unfortunate conditions that I'm speaking of, but also public challenges from other states, such as Texas, to try to lure jobs away. And that's happening because the culmination of aggressive anti-business policies that the Attorney General has spoken of. The governor defended his record, and as Dr. Hicks spoke of, cherry-picking a certain statistic. The Tax Foundation study, he found that it ranked Maryland 8th in the nation for mature firms. The problem is mature firms are firms that have been here 10 years or longer, long before the governor came into office. So the same Tax Foundation, just a paragraph or two below that, ranks Maryland dead last for new capital-intensive manufacturing companies, and as was stated earlier, 46th for new labor-intensive manufacturing firms. The total effective tax rate for new capital-intensive manufacturing company is roughly 32%, 180% higher than the national average. New labor-intensive manufacturing firms have a total effective tax rate of 16.1%, which is 38% above the national average. And these new labor-intensive firms have the highest property tax burden of their type in the nation. Also, the state's tax burden for new manufacturing is the highest in the nation, 4 times higher than the national average. In particular, the state's taxes on equipment are among the nation's highest. Startup costs are grossly prohibitive for young entrepreneurs compared to our neighboring states. So now I get to the next part, what needs to be done. When I announced my candidacy for governor on June 5th, I released my platform, manufacturing as an important part of it. The editorial board of the Baltimore Sun wrote a few weeks later that I was the leader in providing such a platform. A central tenet for my platform is bringing manufacturing back to Maryland. However, it's not as simple as making blanket statements or quoting stats on our tax code. We must take a regional approach. My approach is a regional approach for different parts in Maryland. In Western Maryland and the Eastern Shore, it's imperative we cultivate our natural resources and place us on the cutting edge of things such as natural gas and shale production, which is being held up. In Baltimore, we need to overhaul our approach, not only to education, but how do we bring our workforce up to speed with that education. Listen, my regional plan has to do with having manufacturing companies in Baltimore. It's not friendly towards manufacturing. There are many more regulations in Baltimore than other parts of the state that make it prohibitive there. I know a couple that tried to start a firm in Baltimore, and it was creating the software and hardware, so it was manufacturing all the way up to IT jobs. But the regulation in Baltimore is you have to hire from within Baltimore. They couldn't find the workforce, they moved out of state. On the Eastern Shore, you have these small crossroad manufacturing, you have these small crossroad towns. You'll see little empty box buildings there. You used to have 40 employees, 70 employees, 110. Some of these startup companies can go to there because the property taxes are lower, cost of living is lower, and they can get started in Maryland. If you travel to Western Maryland, Eastern Shore, Southern Maryland, those little boxes are all empty, okay? We need to expand Baltimore's export industry. We're expanding the Panama Canal. We're expanding our harbor. And they're saying how many jobs it will create. Well, they're all jobs to construct the harbor or those who will work in the loading and unloading of ships. Many companies would rather be located close to where the import-export is. We're not doing anything to attract those businesses. It's good to be able to produce it and make it and be able to ship it right from this location. BWI Airport and our port can certainly be used to create a better portfolio for us and increase that industry. There's a lot of work to be done as Maryland is currently ranked 42nd in the nation for export business climate. In my promise, I propose lowering the corporate income tax rate by 2% the first year to 6.25% in 2015, then lowering it by 0.25% in 2016 and 0.25% in 2017 to put it at 5.75%. I believe it helps to create an incentive for business to come and for those to stay in Maryland, having the predictability that that day is coming. We want to attract small businesses, large, even Fortune 500, but we want to keep you here also. We need also to cut the personal income tax rate, and that's in my promise. It's not coming from your question, but you'll see in there. I would like to do it right away to a 5%, go back to the fixed rate for all workers. One thing I see a problem in Maryland is we've raised our business taxes, and then we are picking winners and losers. We'll give a tax credit here and there, here and there. My plan is to make it across the board, but also a regional plan, a little better in certain areas to get it going. By the way, when I led that repeal of the tech service tax, I've also been a co-sponsor with Delegate Feldman, a bipartisan bill for the tech tax. That industry is doing well. That is one industry, and the manufacturing industry is doing well in Maryland. That should say something to all of us. What about giving that break to everybody? Educating our workforce is a top priority. In Maryland, it costs $13,900 to educate each student. So I have a promise on that, one of my promises.
2 minutes.
Okay. Lastly, I'll just run through a few things. I want to consolidate all state resources and information regarding exports into one go-to agency that will help businesses of all sizes to market and establish themselves internationally. I want to be able to help you also to be able to go international, besides attracting the new business, if that's where you want to go. The procurement process is another thing where we need reform. If you have one business going out of state, out of business, find out why. Maybe they can consolidate with another business. I'd like to have an agency that helps people to be able to do that, to keep them in business. We must increase the demand for domestically manufactured products. We can achieve this a number of ways, but we must combat global currency manipulation, and a governor can help to encourage the federal level to do this. We want to make sure our state debt stays lower. We seem to have created structural deficits going into the future. I want public-private partnerships in the education at community colleges and high school to help create a workforce. Grants for responsible, I also want grants for responsible, sensible energy companies who will manufacture here. And my policies will make Maryland's cost of living here much better because you need that workforce. That's very important to do. They say we're the richest state. You probably heard that again this morning. But the cost of living here is, its percent of income is among the highest, and that makes it very hard for you to get the workforce that you need. Very last comment. The return of our investment in manufacturing is clear. For every dollar spent in manufacturing, it adds $1.50, $1.48 to the economy. That's the highest multiplier of any economic sector. The Marylanders who are suffering the most right now happen to be the ones who stand to benefit the most from bringing these jobs back to Maryland, because these are entry-level and mid-level jobs we're talking about. It isn't just all about the tech and the cybersecurity, which we seem to be working on. It's the entire state. It is an area we need to have. It's part of my answer for bringing Baltimore back. I believe in building an economic base in Baltimore, but as I said, across the state. And that includes Hagerstown, Cumberland, Salisbury, the type of manufacturing firms that could be there, and of course the little crossroad towns that I spoke of. With that, I'd be happy to take any questions.
Thank you, Delegate George.
Thank you all. I appreciate it.
I have two questions. Thank you for answering my tax questions. I don't have to ask that one. You mentioned the natural gas opportunity out in the western side of our state. Can you please give us explicit, step-by-step, what you would do to help open up that area to exploration so we could take advantage of that wonderful resource that we have there?
Yeah, it's important. I think the production of natural gas is very important for us in Maryland. It's clean energy, and we've got to get to clean as soon as possible. We know what's happening to the air here, the Ohio Valley, the smog. Anne Arundel County, where I'm from, is one of the highest cancer rates in the country. There's a reason for that, what comes down and what's happening. It's very important for us to get there. Garrett County already has people drilling underneath it, but they're from the other states. They're going down the new method and going sideways. It's much safer. This scare tactic that people are doing, as you study the science of it, I've come down in favor of doing that drilling, getting this natural gas in here. We have agencies ready to go and people ready to go, and it will do a big boost for our economy in this state and help us to become a little more energy independent. It's very important.
You spoke about bringing industry back to Maryland. Any particular industries you'd focus on?
Well, the small manufacturing firms, being a small businessman, are very important to me. But every level, the big companies to the smaller ones. Nikki Haley down in South Carolina has been attracting them. North Carolina has just lowered its income tax rates. And I thank you for noticing, that the sole proprietorships and the partnerships, have to be included in that. And that's why the personal income tax rate is important for business also. I would say just about every level, when I look at manufacturing across the board, we can compete. We can compete with other nations. We can compete with other states. Maryland has to do it. It has to be part of our portfolio. And we need to keep all these people here in this state. And you see a big mix here as I've been going around the room talking to people. And any particular one, it's not that I can't pick one. I can't pick one not to help, not to try to attract. I will be a salesman for Maryland. In order to do that, I want to create a product that I can sell and help to get the industry back.
You gave the example of, say, within the city of Baltimore, the regulation requirement that you got to hire somebody local, and that being maybe one of the more tougher regulations that keeps jobs from moving there. But as governor, that's not necessarily your jurisdiction. So, how would you go about, looking at trying to get that changed, to get that removed, to get that opened up, as well as other ones?
Yeah, as governor, I can't just remove those regulations. It has to go through the process, the legislative process. But I think we really need to have a board and a commission to study the regulatory process and go through and find the ones that are overbearing and try to see what we can do to become more business friendly. You have many people that are regulating your businesses that don't understand your business. And that really drives me crazy. I once had Department of Labor and Licensing police came into my business because it was heard that I I was melting down used merchandise. Well, there was a law that if you bought gold, like pawn shops do, you can't melt it down. You have to hold it for so many days. Well, the problem is I'm a goldsmith. If you give me jewelry to melt down and make a bangle bracelet out of, I can do that. But they didn't understand that. And it put us 2 weeks before Christmas all over the newspaper for being investigated. All the charges were dropped. For some reason, I was made a target, it was found out. And so I have a little sensitivity to some of the regulations and how they're read from people who don't quite understand it. I also know the unemployment insurance taxes are too high in this state. We have to do something to become more friendly in this state. I fired a guy for sexually harassing a 17-year-old employee, very beautiful girl, daughter of friends of ours. Found her crying in the storeroom, and I asked her what was going on, and she finally told me it had been going on for a couple months. He was giving her the names and addresses of Playboy photographers she should go to and things like this. I fired him, and they started giving him unemployment benefits, and I called up to complain because there were other things he did wrong. And they said, well, Delegate George, no, he gets it. I appealed it twice. They finally said I was right. He doesn't get it for 5 weeks. And then they gave it to him for the full period. My rate went up. You know, you can't let anybody go. I don't think it should be that way. We have to try to find a way of understanding business and the fact you're trying to get good employees, and that, you know, we need someone to represent you a little bit more. The gentleman who's here from DBED, I forgot his name, sir, but you know, a comment was made earlier on DBED, and there has been a long period of misunderstanding at the governor's level from Department of Business and Economic Development. And I'm proud to have this gentleman on board because he gets it and he is a good businessman. So I just want to make that comment, you know, out of fairness to DBED. Did I answer your question all right? Was it close or?
No, that was close. I mean, because kind of, yeah, you don't necessarily direct that particular group of people.
You don't, but we need to go over the whole regulatory process, and we need to go in there, and we need to get rid, we absolutely have to get rid of all these that are unfriendly and coming from a misunderstanding of your industry. Thank you.
Oh, yeah, got a couple more minutes. One of the things that you had referenced was, I believe, I get my notes here right, offering tax credits for folks to go into buildings that were already vacant, and, you know, maybe focusing in on a particular, you know, some of the particular industries. So, and that's a piece, certainly a piece of it. What about the businesses that are about to make a building vacant? What are your thoughts about how do we retain those?
Yeah,
and allow them to be prosperous?
First and foremost, we need to retain. We got to stop the bleeding and keep you here. That's lowering those corporate rates and things. I was talking about Baltimore in that thing, and as a governor, you do control the purse strings, and this state actually pays for just about everything in Baltimore. And you know, I want to have independent audits of every agency and follow the money and find out this waste and find out actually what's happening. We never do that. We only have internal audits, and you're using the figures that they gave you. However, federal dollars that have been given to this state and to Baltimore, the federal government has done audits and have found waste and fraud and misappropriation. So it's really important to me to go in and find out what's happening in Baltimore because we don't know. And they might be offended. They don't want you looking at the books. But we have to do that. And the property tax rate in Baltimore has to come down. We have to turn around all the empty buildings that are there and help to develop that workforce so people can have jobs and create hope for them, true hope, you know. And so Baltimore is one thing, but you know, the property tax rates are going up all around the state because we've tied maintenance of effort to education to it, and in order to meet those goals, you have to you know, raise the property taxes. My friends, it's really something if you understand maintenance of effort. It basically says that the school board says that spending needs to be increased this much for education, and the county executive disagrees, okay? He gets to appeal it. Well, he appeals it to the state board of elections. So it's a no-win situation as far as I'm concerned, and property taxes do go up. And so that is an important part of it. So we've got your cost of living, the property taxes, the different corporate and business taxes. We need to become more friendly. I believe doing these things that I've talked about will expand our tax base, help you to hire more employees. We expand our tax base, we can meet the things that we have to do. We've still lost, despite what the governor says, more private sector jobs in this state than we had in January 1st of 2007. So that's not a good record, and we have to turn that around.
There are some areas that are doing some very exciting things in manufacturing out of necessity, such as Detroit. So have you studied any of the cities that have brought back urban manufacturing?
Yes, I have. I've gone to those things, I've looked into them, and many of the car parts, it was mentioned here about the medical industry in Maryland, those pieces should be being made here. You know, we have some of the heads of the companies here, but they're not making those pieces here because of our rate of what it costs to do manufacturing in this state. I think we have to do that. The medical supplies, many of all the way down to the entry-level jobs of manufacturing, get people in that door. We also have to understand that, you know, we want to be fair to everybody, but we need to have a kind of work for welfare system at some level in this state. We don't have it. We have lifetime welfare, people being born into welfare, and you actually make $18 an hour on welfare, so why leave? You know, we have to make it more attractive to people to work, and I think that helps us too. Okay.
Okay. Thank you very much, Delegate George. We appreciate you coming today. Thank you very much.
Thank you all, and thank you for what you do. Thank you.